Okay, the first one I wanted to talk about was Theranos, which was founded in 2003 by Elizabeth Holmes, who right now is currently serving a sentence of 11 years, which in my opinion is too light of a sentence for what she did. For fraud on the largest scale, she was able to, I mean, it's a crazy story. She's basically a 19-year-old student from kind of a well-to-do family, and she was always incredibly ambitious and had big plans of what she was going to do. She dropped out of college and used that money instead to found her own sort of startup company with her family's approval and an extremely wealthy relative donating $1 million. Her whole concept was kind of playing on Steve Jobs' success, which was to invent something revolutionary that no one else had ever done before and become the greatest entrepreneur and basically have this incredible following solely on her own ingenuity, networking, the premise of her invention. The only problem was she cared more about her image, getting more funds, which she was actually incredible at, generating revenue and convincing people of just anything. I mean, this woman was even able to, it's crazy, from prison, she's actually trying to start another little company through her husband's name, because of course she's not allowed to do anything. It's just there is no word for that could really encapsulate this woman's chutzpah. I mean, she still can convince people even after being convicted that she has good ideas and that maybe she was taken advantage of and the victim of whoever, whatever excuse she has that day. But primarily she's tried to blame it on this older gentleman. I mean, only by 20 years, but she got in with him early on. What was his name? I'll have to pull it up again. Sandway. I'm butchering his name. Anyway, he was just this, I wouldn't say he was a scientist. He was in the scientific field, in the business field, and she was with him the whole time that this was going on. And in the trial against her, he ended up catching way more convictions than her. I think she only got 4. But she tried to say that, he forced her to do all this and she was fearful of him and he was, controlling. And he was a controlling, terrible jerk and treated everyone like they were robots or garbage there at his disposal. I mean, he was absolutely horrific within the company in bullying people who worked there. That is true. Most people would not challenge him whatsoever. But I mean, she is such a force to be reckoned with, and she has this incredible moxie where she just truly does not see her own fallibility. She does not self-reflect. She does not, I mean, this is typical psychopathic, sociopathic, anti-personality disorder behavior, whatever. But she only can see what's right about her, and pretty much she can see what other people want and what other people desire. And that makes her, with her high intelligence and, you know, how she had all these connections financially with her family, and, you know, each famous person or mogul that she was able to get on her board, she had this invincible board that absolutely nobody would ever question. Much like Madoff, which I'll get into that later. It's the same premise. It's like these people are masterminds at, it's almost like setting up a chess game. They're masterminds at strategy. They're masterminds at networking, at psychology, at being able to pick up what's important to people. There was one extremely wealthy gentleman on her board. He was actually the grandfather of one of the whistleblowers, which is actually kind of fascinating. But anyway, his wife had died of pancreatic cancer, and he had actually had this terrible battle with pancreatic cancer himself. And he, I guess, was one of the few people who, that Whipple method, or, you know, the one surgery they have for that condition, actually worked, and he survived. And at one point they were going to some event where they were trying to, you know, elicit more people for the funds, and get more important people involved in the company. And of all the diseases that she claimed that her invention, her blood machine, it was a machine that supposedly could process multiple, supposedly up to 100 blood tests at one time. Well, it was like a small device. Instead of you having to send all your, you know, like when you get your blood taken and it gets sent to multiple labs, you know, and especially if there's something seriously wrong with you, it's probably sent, you know, out of the jurisdiction of where you live. So then you have to wait longer to get the results. What she was proposing is she was making some kind of, you know, mega machine that would do all this contained in itself. You wouldn't have to send it out to any lab, not even locally. So, I mean, honestly, when I read about her, like, proposal long before this all fell apart, my grandfather and uncle owned a laboratory. They're pathologists. And so I've grown up having to go to labs and having to see them, you know, looking at blood samples under microscopes. I mean, like, this endless dinner chat about, you know, blood evidence and what it means in like a courtroom or for a medical diagnosis. Like, I've heard it all. So I do remember, like, way back when I first heard this story, I remember thinking in the very, very back of my mind, like, I don't think that's possible. Like, I don't think so. You know, maybe you could collect the samples, but I don't think you could process them like that. It does. Personally, I would not trust something that sounded that easy to do, something so, you know, fundamentally serious, like in like your life. Anyway, my whole point with this was when they went to this big committee to talk about, you know, promote her whole spiel. She always had the same spiel. And she would always dress like Steve Jobs, which is another super creepy fact. She always wore black turtlenecks, and she would dress very simply. and, present herself in a very direct, uh, focused manner, much like how he talked. And she really was very unemotional, not a bleeding heart, not somebody who would elicit empathy. She was much more a tactician of the mind, very cerebral, much like Steve Jobs. Anyway, the topic she chose to discuss that this blood test was going to help that particular day, this story just stuck with me, was pancreatic cancer research. So it seems so, to me, cruel and so like a surgeon, so particular, that she would take the one issue that this man had affected him so deeply. And it's really a manipulation tactic, right? Because it's like, of course, that's something so incredibly important to him. It's like she could have picked any disease, but it's like he was there with her that day. And so that's what she was focused on. And I'm just showing this as an example of how good she was as a manipulator, con artist, grifter, whatever you want to call it. Only she was a billionaire, so it's like the highest stakes ever. That she would basically study people to some ridiculous degree behind their backs without their knowledge, and she was always listening, filtering, categorizing, fact filing. She was always like like a human file folder of what people said to her. She absorbed everything like a sponge, and then she would turn around and use that information, regurgitate it back in a form as if she was selling them their own dream, their own desire, the cause, whatever thing that they wanted the most. But here's the trick. She did it with everybody, like literally everybody. She did it so much that I don't think, like watching tapes back of her, they even made a movie about her. I'll say later what the title is. It's slipping my mind for a second. But so much so that I don't think when you watch her, it even sometimes seems like it's planned. It's just innate. It's just her nature. It's like it just flows out of her, like when we talk about God, and we talk, we talk about scripture, and we talk about the nature of all, right? Of all, the all being of the universe. It's like we always talk about, well, he just generates, he, she, whatever, generates unity and peace and cohesion of the self. It just comes off, the light just pours out of this being, and it just infiltrates everything, but in a way that's soothing, relieving. Like when people have had near-death experiences, that they always say this calm comes over them, and this peace, this sense that the greatest burdens that they've carried are finally lifted. It's almost like she had that kind of, I don't want to give her too much credit, she's not God, but it would sort of emanate out of her this sort of deceptive intelligence. And Madoff too, only he was a little bit less, he is extremely charismatic too. He didn't have, I think the thing that she had youth and that sort of vitality that only somebody sort of at the beginning of their life could, or career, could really generate. And it's desirable. It's something people want to, they crave to have. And everybody innately knows that quality in somebody is a quality of success, a quality that is going to only make that person shine brighter. It's not going to deter, no matter what they're fucking saying, whatever they're talking about, selling ice cream, you know, out of a truck. It doesn't matter what they're doing. It's simply pouring out of them in a way that others are, I wouldn't say desperate to receive, but are so attracted to they cannot help themselves, if that makes sense. Okay, I'm gonna have to take a break because I have a meeting. I'll be back.